All right, folks. Chapter 23 is miyuchadim, bound up, united with God. God creates a concealment in this world where I feel my independence. And the whole point is in order that I should ultimately be bound up and united in one with God. And it has to come from my efforts through my engagement. So we spoke about yesterday, how do we do that with mitzvahs? A mitzvah, we're bound up and united with God in two dimensions, we spoke. The soul's power of action is connected, right? The not the physical of the person, but the soul's power of action is united in one with God, just like soul and body are united in one with each other. The physical limb is also united with God, but in a different way. It is not in a seamless soul-body metaphor connection, but the metaphor there is of driving your car, or merkava, the term is chariot, meaning that the unity is just like the chariot is surrenders to its rider. It has no will of its own. It is driven by its rider. So likewise, the limb of the body, no will of its own, it is driven and united by its rider, God. In other words, in the act of doing the mitzvah, extending your hand to give charity, extending your hand to do an act of kindness, putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, right? So there's the power of the soul, the soul's power of action to be able to do that. So that's united and one with God. And there is the physical limb that is united too, not just the spirit of the person, which is also an important, unique idea, that it's the physical reality of the person that's also bound up with God, but not as a body and soul metaphorically, but as a chariot is to its rider, that it's subservient, nullified, and bound up, connected nonetheless. Okay. Now in today's class, the Alter Rebbe says that when we're studying Torah like we're doing right now, the unity with God is even greater than in a mitzvah. A mitzvah, you're bound up with God, right? But you're like two separate things, whether it's body and soul or whether it's rider and chariot. Two separate things. What does that mean? Perfect unity, that is through the study of Torah, is that the divine will of God is not merely a chariot that unites us with Him, but it is this perfect unity. It is not like even body and soul, because body and soul, are they really perfect unity? No. What's the proof? After you pass away, your body goes into one place and your soul goes in another place. In other words, even when they're together, there's a distinction between them. And as we see, when you pass on, the body and the soul are separated, hence death. So what's a deeper unity that Torah has, and what's the metaphor for that? Well, it's the soul itself with its 10 powers. Does the soul, the essence of the soul, and the 10 powers, which are the 3 intellectual, Chabad, and the 7 emotions, are they like, can you separate them? Well, if you have a soul, then you have 10 powers. If you have 10 powers, you have a soul, right? Although there is a distinction between the essence of the soul and the powers of the soul. Yet that's a perfect unity. That's called a perfect unity. We are studying Torah right now. Our minds thinking the words of Torah, the soul as it is thinking the words of Torah, are being united at this very moment in a perfect unity, just as the soul is perfectly united with the powers of the soul. We are perfectly united and one with God in that manner. All right. Sounds great. How do you understand that? Well, let's give a metaphor. In other words, what we're saying is the unity that we have with God is greater in the study of Torah than it is in doing a mitzvah. Right? And of course, studying Torah is also a mitzvah, but that mitzvah element is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the comprehension of the divine wisdom of God that we comprehend it, there's a greater unity than there is in the act of giving charity. Unity. We're not talking benefit. We're not talking about how you impact the world. We're not talking about that. We're talking about one thing: unity and oneness with God. So metaphors like this: a king wants a palace to be built, and the king, who is very capable, is also an architect and makes architectural plans. So when you fulfill the will of the king by putting the wall exactly where the architectural plans say that you should, you're fulfilling the will of the king. But when you are studying the architectural plans to understand it, the architectural plans is itself the embodiment of the divine, of the wisdom of the king and the will of the king. It is the embodiment of it itself. It constitutes his will and wisdom. As opposed to you're just following the dictate and putting a wall here, putting a beam there, putting whatever it is, which of course you got to do. That's not the point. Point is, what constitutes more of a expression of the king? It's the blueprints itself, the architectural plans itself, not the performance of the following those plans. Of course, you have to follow the plans because that's what the king wants. Of course, you got to do mitzvahs because God wants that, right? So you got to study Torah, do mitzvahs. That's not the point. The point is, which one is more of an expression of the king? The plans themselves are. Because the plans are, when he took his wisdom and he took his will and he made the plan like this and like that, that's the expression of his in that. So when you're studying that, you're getting his wisdom. You're getting his will as it is expressed in that architectural plans, that blueprints. Torah is the blueprints of creation. You're studying it, you're knowing God's will and wisdom. It is the expression of the will. And therefore, the unity that you have is a deeper unity. When you do the mitzvah, fulfill what the plans say, yeah, of course there's a unity. Of course you're doing what God wants. No question. But you're doing what he wants rather than this is an expression of the want. I hope that's clear, because that's a very deep idea. Therefore, Torah and God are absolutely one, and not merely organs of the king, as we expressed yesterday from the Zohar, right? Torah and God are one. He is the knower, the knowledge, and the known, and one with the Torah, his wisdom, and therefore by the studying of it, we're knowing him, and therefore we are united and one with him in a much deeper and profound unity than in the act of doing a mitzvah. What's the greater part of the mitzvah, though? Why is a mitzvah? So just study Torah, don't do mitzvahs. Well, the truth is, you don't do mitzvahs unless you have to do them. You should be studying Torah all the time because of the greater unity. But you have to do so. You do that. But there is a virtue in the act of the mitzvah that is greater than the study of Torah, but that's not for now. We'll deal with that another time, actually. Not in this, not here, because that's not the point over here. The point in this chapter and what we're trying to bring out, which I hope is clear, God creates a world that is concealing him, where we feel our independence, where we feel I am. And what's the whole point? Is to come to a point where, no, you're bound up in one with God. That's the vehicle of the mitzvah, brings that unity. And the Torah, even in a deeper sense, brings that unity and oneness with God. And that's the where we're going with all of this. The greater value of a mitzvah. Okay, we'll deal that with later on in Tanya. I hope that's clear. Very powerful idea. Something to have a great Shabbos with. To fabring on this Shabbos Shira. Jody from Pennsylvania, thank you for joining. Dina from Brooklyn, I think I mentioned already, but again, with pleasure. Joseph has the flu. Yeshav refuah shlema. Speed of recovery. Rena from Colorado. Christine, I don't know if I got that right, from Brazil. Welcome. And I didn't get to catch your name. Jean, thank you for joining. From Toronto? No, I don't remember. Remind me, Jean. Sigalit. Yema Shishi. Thank you for joining. You have to remind me from where, Sigalit. Oh, Fort Joseph. So Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you. Denise and Linda from New York. Thank you for joining. Janet from California. Erica from Norway. Jo from Portugal. Mark from Manalapan, New Jersey. Thank you for joining. And Vacha, now from Montreal. Thank you for joining. Tom, San Diego. Jody, Migs from the Philippines. Tim from New Haven. Henry from California. Thank you for joining. Teo and Tom, Jerry, and Elona, Jacqueline from New Jersey, Jerry from California, and sorry, on Instagram, Anna, Anita from California, Marilyn from Delaware, Lois, Low, okay, we got it. Low from Texas, hello. Hi, okay, wonderful. All right, folks, sharing is caring. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. And in preparation for Shabbos, have a wonderful preparation. And as we learn together, and we unite with Hashem in the learning and perfect unity. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Feingold of Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you, Tanya. Have a wonderful day, good Erev Shabbos, and a wonderful good Shabbos.